Have you ever got through a chaos run but unfortunately failed right before the final boss, but you thought to yourself, you know what, at least I get to keep my save data, and I had some amazing cards that I can go use to farm some content with and have fun, only to realize that it's gone for good? I absolutely know that frustration. So in today's video, we're going to give you a little highlight of what we know so far about save data and why it is honestly the #1 thing I hate about this game. And it's only because, well, we don't know. But it seems everyone's on the same page with this because so much of this is unknown, and I got this question so much in every single one of my streams. So I'm going to share some tips about what I know, as well as some best practices or best guide tips about how you're starting your journey as you're going through the chaos mode. So up front, I want to say that yes, we are right before level 40, so we're gonna get this last one soon, probably by like Sunday or Monday. But until we can get some like concrete info, I want to at least share what I know so far. Now, we'll just use the blue pot as the example, but also keeping in mind that the chaos itself does not matter. What's going to matter is, and if I can just move my head a little bit, you'll notice down here it says save data value being low. At difficulty 1, it's very low. Same with difficulty 2. At difficulty 3, it jumps up to low. Same with 4. You go to 5, you'll see that it says normal, and then normal again. Save data value is the cap that you can use for saving your data. So for example, with Veronica on the most recent one that we ended up clearing, while it wasn't maybe the best that we could have done, we still have 37,000. Now, unfortunately, if you go back and if you watch the video that we had, the reason why it's so much lower than what it should have been is because a bunch of our monster cards get removed. And this kind of brings me up to my first pain point about this. We were on nightmare mode of all things and still lost cards. Now, for those that don't know, what does that actually mean? When you go back to chaos and you go onto nightmare mode, you'll notice that this jumps from normal to high. So to get a better save data and have a higher threshold, you always want to be on the highest difficulty. And again, at the time of this recording, difficulty 6 on each of the first 4 chaos all say save data value high. Makes sense. Hardest difficulty, hardest content, that's how you're going to get the best stuff. Unfortunately, in the Veronica example that I had just mentioned, with our save data, we actually had like double maneuvering fire, and we had some absolutely insane monster cards. So for difficulty 1 and 2, I will say just guarantee that you're not going to be able to save your monster cards unless it is the only thing that you have. No gear, no other like advanced cards. They have a very, very high cap to them. Also keeping in mind, at least from what we can tell so far, if a card is either basic, rare, I forget what the actual names are now off the top of my head, but like if it has purple text or if it has the legendary text, what I just called epic and legendary, you are going to be limited. Again, those cards are more expensive, will cost more, and eat into that that data cap. Now, one thing I would love to know is that if we're going to go over, let us know what we're keeping, right? That is the biggest issue. There's nothing in the game today that says, hey, would you like to keep X amount? Or when you're selecting an item, you might go, hey, if you select this, you're going to go over on your save data cap. Some type of identifier in the game would be super helpful. Now, the other thing I do want to mention about this is that it does, at least because the save data is the same, this then gives us an understanding about the equipment. So depending on what you're farming for, what character you're going for, ideally what you would want to do in a perfect world, let's assume difficulty 6, you have free choice, you're going to want to go through each one of these equipment items, find out what the best one is, and plan your route around that. Now, keep in mind, something like the mythic equipment, you can only equip one of these at a time, and it's going to have a very high save data cost. Once we get to difficulty 6, probably not an issue, but if we start to stack up, you know, multiple of the gold items on our characters, plus you can have all the upgrades, it's going to feel very, very bad. So what would I recommend, right? Again, we're just going to use blue pot as the example. If you are in difficulty 1 or 2, and we're going to use Haru as this example, right? If I'm in difficulty 1 and 2 as Haru, I am going to find a weapon because she is primarily the damage dealer for her gear. And then I am going to ignore the other 2 slots. We don't know how much these actually count towards the total save data cap, but we do know that they count towards that limit. And when you're in difficulty 1 and difficulty 2, you have a very, very low amount that you can actually, rely on. In this deck in particular, this was on a difficulty 4 clear. We have 2 different divine upgrades, and we have a mythic, but we did lose, and I think it was a monster card in this one now that I think about it. This is another instance where we lost a monster card, even on difficulty 4. It wasn't Nightmare, it was just regular difficulty 4, but that is something to consider. Looking back on this run, I probably should have just not equipped the Gladiator's helmet. Now again, I don't know if that would have given me the extra card that I lost or not, but that's how you should start thinking about it. So for difficulty 1 and 2, my recommendation would be to focus on, if it's a damage dealer, you know, get your attack, because that's going to buff their cards. If it's a support character, let's just use a sustain, I guess is probably a better example, right? If it's a sustain and we know that we're doing a bunch of defense-based stuff, get a defensive item on that character and then ignore the rest. If it's going to be a support that is just, you want more health, right? Let's just use Mika as the example. Whatever your health item is, just pick that for your character and go on. While yes, these stats are nice, clearing farming content and things of that nature is really going to boil down to what do you have access to in your save data from the cards, because they have some absolutely insane modifiers attached to them. So if you missed the stream, one of the ones that we got, not Deluge, but the other one, let me go to our cards. We got a monster card that allowed us to copy any card from our deck and add it to our hand. So we were able to get a tactical analysis upgrade that then said, I have plus 100 healing for the rest of that battle. And if you've been spending any amount of time with Mika, right, you know just how insane plus 100 healing is for your entire kit. So I really do want to stress that monster cards are pretty insane. Unfortunately, in difficulty 1 and difficulty 2, you're probably not going to get to keep them. In difficulty 3 and 4, I have been able to successfully save a monster card. Unfortunately, it was like the only save data that I had, and I'm pretty sure I deleted it anyways. But then when we get to things like difficulty 5 and difficulty 6, and especially once we get into nightmare mode, right? This is difficulty 3 again, it's still listed as low, but difficulty 6 going up to the save data value is going to be high. Now, the very last Chaos might actually have a higher threshold, because if we go back to Chaos, the overall screen, you'll notice that they say small, medium, medium, extra large, and swap of judgment. And then we can only assume that this last one will also be extra large and probably have some more difficulty around it. But in extra large, it does state that like there's going to be extra battles you have to fight. You're going to have a really bad time. So I would not be surprised if the final Chaos stage has something like an extra floor, you know, much harder boss, but it has like a very high save data cap. And that's what you're going to want to be farming on nightmare mode, you know, at the highest difficulty you can, and making sure that you're finding that perfect combination of stuff that you really want. Now, the last tip that I want to add here, at least for this video, because again, unfortunately, there's just too many unknowns to give an exact answer, but a lot of people might not be aware of the card collection category. So if you go to card collection and you click all the way here down to the bottom, you can see some of the neutral cards as long as you have selected them. So something again to keep in mind, so Shock was an insane card when we were using our Haru build, that these will still get epiphanies on them as well. And this one was Mark. I think Mark 2 is what we got on it as well. I'd have to go back and remember for the stream, but neutral cards are very, very good. And then when we go to the very bottom, you can start to see some of the monster cards as well that are in here. Now, and this was the card that we got, man. This is, whew, we got this card with a divine upgrade that reduced its cost and generated an AP. So not only do we get to play the card for free, copy something from our draw pile and add it to hand and get to duplicate it for like an upgrade and get all this insane stuff, we were still then also generating in AP while doing so. It was, the monster cards are insanely busted. So where does that leave us, right? I just wanted to give a quick rundown of, you know, quick recommendations, what I would dive into, kind of how I'm focusing. Again, so difficulty 1 and 2, let's just recap at the end. Difficulty 1 and 2, pick one key gear piece for each one of your characters. Upgrade your starting decks normally. Once you get into category 3 and 4, if you're on nightmare mode, that's when you could really start to go all in and just make sure you're getting as many upgrades. Again, probably should have left off the defense if I want to min-max this a little bit more. But it's more, I'm starting to feel more comfortable about picking up cards and knowing that, you know, divinity upgrades are not that bad. Monster cards, if you get the divinity upgrade, yeah, unfortunately, you can probably just kiss them goodbye. But this build that we have for Veronica is still very strong and makes my farming life a lot easier, all things considered. So when we get up to 5 and 6, that is probably when it's, you know, all in, get whatever monster cards you want, upgrade as much as you can, and just absolutely have fun with it. So at the very end, I of course want to, you know, not harp on it too much, but give some feedback, because I think this is something that seriously needs to be improved upon. And I think that if once you get into the chaos and you really start to lose stuff over and over and get frustrated with it, you will absolutely agree. But for, you know, Super Creative or whoever else out there, you know, for me, I would love to see, if it says normal here, just let us know what the number is. Let us know what that range is so we can start to figure it out ourselves. Now, in a perfect world, right, we would be able to go through, and again, we'll just go back to Veronica for this sake, right? If we go to our save data, just tell me how much this is worth, right? It's a blue upgrade with a divinity skill, and obviously a ultimate or a gold card with a divinity skill is going to be worth more. I totally understand that, but are we talking 2,000 more? Are we talking 5,000 more? We have absolutely no way of knowing in the current iteration of the game. And I have to say, all things considered, other than, you know, being in a gacha and I wish I could have every character, what have you, this is honestly my only complaint so far. And it's a pretty minor one, all things considered, but I'm probably just a little extra salty because last night I had that insanely good spirit card, and it was so late in the run that I got the divinity upgrade on it as well, and I just knew I was not going to be able to keep it. But man, that is also the reason why I'm so excited to play this game and check it out for difficulty 5, difficulty 6, nightmare mode, and all that good stuff. So let me know your thoughts. Did this at least help? Do you have any other questions I might be able to answer at a high level about the save data? Definitely let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, I do hope this is something that they update really, really quickly, because it's a fun game and we just need to have a little bit more clarity around this so we can absolutely min-max this to the end. But ultimately, again, pick your chaos, look at the equipment that you're trying to farm. Difficulty 1 and 2, stick with one item. At 3 and 4, that's when you can start ramping it up. And a week-ish from now, or 2 weeks, however long it takes to get to difficulty 6, we'll do another video revisiting this topic and reintroducing, hey, here's what we're able to do on Nightmare of difficulty 6. So if you want to see that content, make sure to like and subscribe for future Chaos Zero Nightmare videos. But until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.